Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let's bring you the headlines first. President Pranab Mukherjee makes historic visit to Palestine. Both countries call for peaceful settlement of conflict with Israel as India reiterates full support for Palestinian cause. Maharashtra Chief Minister reacts sharply to Shiv Sena's protest against former Pakistan Foreign Minister's book launch ceremony. Says cannot allow the state to run into a banana republic. More writers give up their Sahitya Academy Awards in protest against intolerance and lack of freedom of speech in the country. Academy calls for an emergency meet. And the United States airdrops ammunition in Syria, delivers more than 45 tons ammunition to rebels fighting the Islamic State. Well, our top focus is President Pranab Mukherjee's visit to West Asia. Now, President Pranab Mukherjee was in Palestine, where he reiterated India's support for the Palestinian cause. Well, he will now make a historic visit to Israel, where a couple of important MOUs are expected to be signed.
India and Palestine have called for a peaceful settlement of the Israel-Palestinian conflict based on internationally agreed principles. Spiraling violence between Israeli forces and Palestine, which has led to hundreds of casualties in recent weeks, figured prominently in the discussions between President Mukherjee and his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas. President Mukherjee is the first Indian head of state to visit Palestine. Mukherjee conveyed India's full support for the Palestinian cause.
India's traditional support to the Palestinian cause remains steadfast and unwavering, while we pursuing strong relations with Israel. Our bilateral relations with Israel are independent of our relations with Palestine. India supports a negotiated solution resulting in a sovereign, independent, viable and united state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, living within secure and recognized borders.
Terrorism with specific reference to the ISIS and Al-Qaeda also came up during the talks. India, which has been helping Palestine in its capacity building, gave a check of $5 million as budgetary support to the Palestinian Authority. It also committed $17.7 million to 5 projects in the Palestinian territory, including a technology park at Ramallah, which will cost $12 million. The Palestinian president informed President Mukherjee that 38 Indians missing in Iraq for several months are still alive, though no evidence has been provided. On his arrival in Palestine, President Mukherjee visited the mausoleum of Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. 2 streets in Palestine were then named after India. The president will give 30 computers to an information technology center at Al-Quds University today before departing for Israel. The president will be on a 3-day visit to Israel, during which 2 major MOUs are expected to be signed.
There are 2 major MOUs that we're about to sign. The first one is the prevention of double taxation. And the second one is cooperation in culture and culture exchange of delegations between the 2 sides. Organize a special session of the Parliament, of the Knesset, in which the President will give a speech to the 120 Parliament members of the Knesset.
India had established full diplomatic relationship with Israel in 1992, though it had recognized the country in 1950. No Indian Prime Minister or President has visited the Jewish state so far. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's get you news from the poll-bound state of Bihar. Well, after a high-pitched, bitter campaigning, the first of the 5 phases of elections to Bihar's 243 seats assembly concluded on Monday. For over a span of 2 months, rival camps led by Prime Minister Modi and Nitish and Lalu, on the other hand, traded barbs and counter-barbs. Here is what happened during the first phase of polling, which saw a 57% voter turnout.
The first phase of the high-voltage Bihar Assembly elections have come to an end. People queued up outside polling booths from 7 in the morning to cast their votes.
ये तो देश के प्रति मेरा कर्तव्य है, मुझको पहले आकर और वोट कास्ट करना चाहिए।
नौजवानों को रोजगार हो, यही सब है और क्या, प्रोग्रेस मतलब होना चाहिए।
मुद्दा तो यही है कि मान लीजिए बिहार में शांति हो, ये गुंडागर्दी खत्म हो, सड़क, बिजली, पानी सभी को सुविधा मिले।
क्या विकास हुआ है पिछले बार, उसको देख करके ही वोट देंगे इस बार।
Around 57% voting was recorded in the 49 constituencies from across 10 districts. This is higher than the previous turnout in these seats in the last assembly polls.
During this phase, the turnout for this phase has been very encouraging. While in the previous election, it was about 50.85%. This time on and up till now, the information received is that it is 57%. Maybe that it will step up further by 1 or 2%.
In terms of geographical size, 1/5 of the state cast their vote in phase 1. 49 seats were contested across 10 districts which include Samastipur, Begusarai, Khagadia, Bhagalpur, Banka, Munger, Lakhisarai, Shekhpura, Nawada and Jamui. In a first, security on voting day was not taken care of by the Bihar police but by paramilitary forces. Additional Chief Electoral Officer R. Lakshmanan said there were no reports of any untoward incident.
दो बूथ है, दोनों बूथों पर एक पे CISF है, एक पे CRPF है। पुख्ता इंतजाम है।
मतदान मोर और लेस पीसफुल रहा है, सिवाय 1-2 इंस्टेंसेस को। 2 जगह क्लैशेस के रिपोर्ट मिले हैं, किंतु वो पोलिंग बूथ से काफी दूर हुए हैं और स्थिति नियंत्रण में है।
A total number of 1.35 crore electors were eligible to cast their votes for 49 assembly seats, for which 583 candidates, including 54 women, contested.
डाल लिया वोट, मताधिकार का प्रयोग किया, मुझे खुशी है और मैं चाहता हूं कि देश में अब एक कानून हो और मतदाताओं के जागरूकता का विशेष अभियान चल ही रहा है और चले।
जनता सेक्युलरिज्म के झंडे के नीचे खड़ी होगी, वहाँ पे महागठबंधन को जिताएगी, उसी की सरकार बनाएगी।
Voting came to an end at 3 p.m. in 9 constituencies. Polling in 4 constituencies ended at 4 p.m. and polling for the remaining 36 constituencies ended at 5 p.m. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, after the first phase election that witnessed sporadic violence on 9th of October, the Uttar Pradesh State Election Commission has now taken further steps for peaceful elections for the second phase of the panchayat polls for the Kshetra and district panchayat in Mathura today. The security has been beefed up for the second phase of panchayat elections in 2 blocks in Mathura. Now, the blocks have been divided into 2 super zones, 6 zones and 34 sectors. While ADM level officers would be in charge of the super zones, SDM level officers would be zonal magistrates. Now, apart from 139 companies of provincial armed constabulary, about 3 lakh personnel from the police, home guards and village chowkidars would be deployed for the smooth conduct of elections. They are considered as the semi-final to the 2017 assembly elections in the state. BJP MP Hema Malini and RLT General Secretary Jayant Chaudhary had both addressed several meetings in the area ahead of the polls. Now, with both BJP and the Congress taking active part in the panchayat elections, the stakes are expected to be very high. And shifting focus to Maharashtra now, where the black ink attack on Devendra Kulkarni notwithstanding, the launch of former Pakistan Foreign Minister Khurshid Kasuri's book went ahead as planned. Remember, Shiv Sena activists had smeared black ink on a former BJP leader's face to protest the book launch.
We would like to... Mumbai stands for peace and dialogue between India and Pakistan. That's the message sent out at the launch of former Pakistan Foreign Minister Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri's book in the city.
ना धमकी से, ना बॉम्ब बंदूक से, ना गोली से, बात बनेगी बोली से. And today's function, in spite of the threats, is a demonstration that Mumbai indeed stands for dialogue for peace between India and Pakistan.
The purpose of writing this book is to correct certain misperceptions. Unless those misperceptions are handled, directly, there is nothing good will come out of, homilies and sweet talk.
The book launch function was a lesson in peace and harmony between the neighbouring countries, but it was preceded by an attack on Devendra Kulkarni. Shiv Sena activists smeared black ink on his face, angered by his decision to hold the book launch in the city.
जो लोग पाकिस्तान के बारे में प्रेम की भावना यहाँ रखते हैं, और पाकिस्तान के लोगों को रेड कारपेट डालते हैं। एक बार उसने हमारे जवानों के जो शहीद जवानों के घर में जाके देखिए क्या आक्रोश है।
Shiv Sena has since withdrawn the protest, but it has drawn sharp criticism from across the political spectrum.
We have a right to disagree on any issue, but the way to protest in a particular manner, which harms somebody, other person's interest, that is not good.
It is not a case of Kulkarni or Kasuri. It is a case of the liberal democratic ethos of India. The only person who must take a lead on this is the Prime Minister. Unfortunately, he has maintained a stoic and eloquent silence for months.
It is nothing but counter-revolution, nothing but subversion, and they want to subvert the secular democratic polity of the country. They want to denounce the constitution which has been given to us by Dr. Ambedkar and galaxy of leaders.
Kasuri's book, Neither a Hawk Nor a Dove, an insider's account of Pakistan's foreign policy, was earlier unveiled in Delhi. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Maharashtra Chief Minister has reacted sharply to ally Shiv Sena's protest against former Pakistan Foreign Minister Mahmood Kasuri. Now, Devendra Fadnavis has said, and I quote him now, "We may not agree with views of somebody, but when a foreign dignitary or a diplomat arrives on a valid visa and holds a program which is not illegal, it is the duty of the state to provide protection." Now, commenting on the Sena's protest, Fadnavis said, "We cannot endorse Mr. Kasuri, but we cannot let our state turn into a banana republic. The rule of law has prevailed. I think the way things have happened has brought a bad name to the state. Now, there could have been better ways to put forth a point of view." Quote, unquote. And in other news, Kashmiri poet Ghulam Nabi Khayal joined the ranks of over a dozen authors to return his Sahitya Academy Award. Now, the wave of protest started less than a week ago after Nayanthara Sehgal returned her award to protest what she called an assault on India's diversity. Well, the Academy has called for an emergency meeting later this month after 16 writers joined the protest.
Writers have stepped up protests against the government's attitude towards religious intolerance, killing of rationalists and lack of freedom of speech. At least 9 more have joined the list of writers to give up the prestigious Sahitya Academy Award since Sunday. At least 11 authors have so far announced their decision to return their Sahitya Academy Awards. Kashmiri writer Ghulam Nabi Khayal, Kannada writer translator Srinath DN and GN Ranganatha Rao, Hindi writers Mangalesh Dabral and Rajesh Joshi have decided to return their Sahitya Academy Awards over Kalburgi's murder. Khayal also joined the bandwagon of authors, saying the minorities in the country today feel unsafe and threatened. Earlier on Sunday, Gujarat-based writer Ganesh Devi, Yuva Puraskar-winning author Aman Sethi and 4 other writers from Punjab returned their awards. Kannada writer Arvind Malagatti resigned from the Sahitya Academy's General Council, joining the growing protest by writers over rising intolerance and communal atmosphere.
प्रोफेसर कलबुर्गी का हत्या अभिव्यक्ति स्वतंत्रता पर किया हुआ हमला है। मैंने इसका खंडन करते हुए इस्तीफा दिया हूं। साहित्य अकेडमी भी खंडन करना चाहिए। अकेडमी के अध्यक्ष महोदय इसके बारे में बयान देना मैं उचित समझता हूं।
3 राइटर्स कत्ल हुए, एक बेचारा मुसलमान दादरी विलेज में कत्ल किया गया। अब हम चुप रहे हैं कि हर एक चैनल पर हमको दिखाया गया है कि और राइटर्स अवार्ड्स वापस दे रहे हैं अपने। ज़रूर ये आंदोलन बढ़ रहा है और बढ़ता जाएगा जब तक ये हालात न बदले।
The writers' body has called for an emergency meet later this month over the growing number of writers returning their awards.
मैंने साहित्य अकादमी के कार्यकारी मंडल की संकटकालीन या इमरजेंट बैठक बुलाई है 23 अक्टूबर को। सभी भाषाओं के एक लेखक होते हैं कार्यकारी मंडल में, तो सारी भाषाओं की तरफ से विचार हो जाएगा।
The writers also condemned Shiv Sena's protests against the book launch of former Pak Foreign Minister Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri. They have urged the government to ensure that such incidents are not repeated. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's take a look at what all is lined up for the day in the day ahead. The Supreme Court will again hear a plea by the Haryana government seeking revocation of order putting on hold the Haryana Panchayat Raj Amendment Act 2015 that says a candidate aspiring to contest local bodies elections should have cleared Class 10. The Supreme Court on 8th of October rejected the plea for setting up a constitution bench of at least 5 judges to go into the validity of Haryana's new law. The 8 farmer unions spearheading the rail roko agitation in Punjab rejected the state government's appeal to end the 4-day agitation yesterday and decided to extend it by another 2 days till today evening. The agitation, which started on 7th of October, has paralysed the train services in the state, causing inconvenience to commuters and huge losses to the railways. CMS Vatavaran Festival, the International Film Festival for Environment and Wildlife Conservation, which is in its 8th edition, will conclude today at Delhi's NDMC Convention Centre. Mumbai-based Farida Pacha's My Name is Sold and German-Italian film Last Call have bagged the Best Film Award in Indian and international categories. The ongoing festival is based on the theme Water for Life, with a special focus on conserving the country's water bodies. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will meet the United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, on Tuesday. De Mistura said on Monday that it was urgent for Russia and the United States to reach an understanding to avert a military escalation that could effectively dismember the country. And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Political slugfest intensifies in Bihar. Regional leaders fight a do-or-die battle. Who wins Bihar and who loses relevance? Watch Verdict 2015 on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Let's now get you some international news. Well, the Dutch Safety Board will publish its final report on why Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 broke up over Ukraine in the year 2014, killing all 298 people on board. Now, preliminary findings say that it was hit by a high-energy object from outside the aircraft, fueling speculation that a surface-to-air missile was responsible. The West and Ukraine say Russian-backed rebels brought down the Boeing 777, while Russia blames Ukraine. But the report will not say who was to blame. Moscow is to issue its own report. Well, the plane flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur crashed in rebel-held eastern Ukraine on 17th of July 2014 at the height of the conflict really between the government troops and the pro-Russian separatists. There were 198 Dutch nationals among the victims. Now, the Turkish government has blamed the Islamic State as the prime suspect for the twin Ankara bombings that killed at least 97 people on Saturday. The government said that the attack bore similarities to the bombing of another pro-Kurdish rally in Suruk in July, which was also attributed to the militant group. The government said that the bombings were an attempt to influence elections due on 1st of November. Now, several people have been detained in connection with the bombings. Officials said that the suspects were carrying 5 kilograms of TNT explosives. Now, Turkey is vulnerable to infiltration by Islamic State, which holds swathes of Syrian land adjoining Turkey. But the opposition has vented anger against President Erdogan, saying that there was no proper investigation. Now, the pro-Kurdish HDP leaders say that Erdogan's party was using escalation of violence as a strategy to push them back. Now, HDP is considering cancelling campaigning prior to the elections out of security concerns.
İki intihar bombacısı saldırıda kullanılmıştır. Fabrikasyon TNT bombaları kullandıkları, her ikisinin de yaklaşık 5 kilogram ağırlığındaki bombalar kullandıkları anlaşılıyor. Olayın oluş şekli, bombanın şekli, kullanılış şekli, tarzı Bunların hepsi Suruç'taki bombalama eylemleriyle bir benzerlik gösterdiği ortaya çıkıyor.
News from adjoining state of Syria, and after shelving a military program to train a new rebel force, the US has begun arming the already existing rebel groups to fight Islamic State in that country. The US military planes on Monday supplied 45 tons of ammunition to the coalition of rebel groups known as the Syrian Arab Coalition. Well, this airdrop comes barely 2 weeks after Russia raised the stakes by intervening in the war on the side of President Bashar al-Assad. Here is more. The United States has begun implementing its new strategy to fight Islamic State in Syria. The plan to arm the existing fighters inside the country. On Monday, US military carried out ammunition airdrop for Syrian Arab groups, delivering more than 45 tons of ammunition. The consignment comprised of small arms, ammunition and grenades. Meanwhile, Russia has intensified its airstrikes on Monday in central Syria, striking 53 alleged Islamic State targets in the last 24 hours.
За прошедшие сутки с авиабазы Хмеймим российские военные самолеты Су-34, Су-25, Су-24М совершили 55 боевых вылетов по 53 объектам террористической группировки ИГИЛ в провинциях Хомс, Хама, Латакия, Идлиб.
While Russia insists it is mainly targeting the Islamic State, the Pentagon says majority of Russian airstrikes have been against the opponents of President Bashar al-Assad. Amid continued US-Russian rivalry, the United Nations on Monday called on Moscow and Washington for urgent agreement.
Let's first start with a first understanding between Russia and the US, which I think is urgent, and then move clearly into the regional context, because without, and we learned in Geneva too, without a regional involvement in discussions, not only in the conflict, there will not be an end to the conflict.
There is a worry on the fact that military activities might be either not targeted against Daesh or other UN-recognized terrorist organizations, and on the other side might not be coordinated with other actors that are playing a military role in the area, which is something dangerous in itself.
Мы приглашаем любых заинтересованных коллег подключиться к операционному центру, который мы вместе с правительствами Ирака, Сирии и Ирана создали в Багдаде, готовы рассматривать и другие точки в регионе, где
On the ground right now, though, the supplies given by the US will help the rebels launch a joint offensive on the city of Raqqa, an IS stronghold with the YPG militia. The Raqqa Revolutionaries Front and the YPG are part of an alliance of Arab and Kurdish groups called the Democratic Forces of Syria, whose creation was announced on Monday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And more international news and updates in World Wrap. Amid heightened tensions, Israeli police shot at another Palestinian in Jerusalem on Monday. Police say the Palestinian had first tried to grab a soldier's rifle and then succeeded in grabbing the pistol of a police officer who was standing at the scene before being shot dead. The Palestinian groups have called for a day of rage across the West Bank, Gaza and East Jerusalem on Tuesday. The leaders of Israel's Arab community have called for a commercial strike. Saudi-backed Yemeni troops and Houthi fighters battled over control of Yemen's third largest city of Taiz. The fierce clashes erupted as men fired weapons from the home of former President Ali Abdullah Saleh, an ally of the Houthi militia. The Saudi-led coalition of Gulf Arab nations has been fighting the Houthis for more than 6 months to restore power to President Mansour Hadi's government. The protests erupted in Kosovo hours after the arrest of a prominent opposition leader. Demonstrators in the capital threw petrol bombs and stones at the police. They returned fire with tear gas shells. The MP Albin Kurti was held by police after setting off the tear gas in parliament last week over the deal between Kosovo's government and Serbia. London's cash-strapped police will no longer keep officers stationed outside the Ecuadorian embassy to catch WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. The Scotland Yard said that the resources are finite and it had crossed £12.6 million and it was no longer proportionate. However, the force said it would deploy a covert plan to monitor Assange. Assange has sought refuge since 2012. The US dentist who sparked an international outcry after killing a lion in Zimbabwe will not be prosecuted. The officials say that Walter Palmer will not be charged as he had obtained legal authority to conduct the hunt. Palmer had admitted to killing Cecil the lion in July, but always denied that he acted illegally. Now Zimbabwe could now be reviewing issuing of hunting licenses. And shifting focus to some sports news, where legendary Brazilian footballer Pelé said on Monday that in order to develop the game in a cricket-obsessed nation like India, work needs to begin at the grassroots levels. Now, Pelé, who is in India on a week-long visit, was speaking at a news conference in Kolkata alongside former Indian cricket captain Sourav Ganguly. The 74-year-old told students to work harder instead of thinking themselves to be the best, adding that physical condition of a football player was very important. Now, Pelé had last visited Kolkata in the year 1977 with former club New York Cosmos when they played a 2-all draw against Mohan Bagan. The legendary footballer will visit New Delhi on 14th of October and will attend the finals of the Subroto Cup 2 days later on 16th of October.
The most important when they want to grow football is to start to work in the base, to get the players who belong to the country and then start to work in the base. And then another important thing I think is to give to the players experience to play abroad.
And let's get you some more sporting action in Sports Wrap. Great Britain came from 2 goals down to beat India 4-3 in the Sultan of Johor Cup. India were leading 3-2 at the end of the first half, but Great Britain kept their nerves to come back strongly from behind and register a victory. India will now face Argentina in the third game to be played on Wednesday. Former world champion Vishwanathan Anand suffered 2 more losses in World Rapid Chess Championship as he finished the second day on 5.5 points. With just 5 rounds remaining, Anand needs to score massively on the last day to stake his claim for a podium finish. England completed their Euro 2016 qualifying campaign with a 100% record after an easy 3-0 victory over Lithuania. England, who qualified for next summer's tournament with 2 matches to spare, are only the 6th team ever to reach the finals with a 100% record. Australian Nick Kyrgios swept aside Andrea's Heather Maurer 6-3, 6-2 to set up a second-round clash with Japan's Nishikori in the Shanghai Masters. American John Isner also advanced with a straight-set victory, while French 16th seed Jo-Wilfried Tsonga overcame Tommy Robredo 6-7, 6-2, 6-2. Well, that's all in this edition of Breakfast News. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day ahead.